Please be seated. This morning, we're going to look at another of the Hebrew Scriptures. We're going to go way back in time to the time around 1100 before the current era. During this period, God's chosen people lived in tribal communities throughout Palestine. This is way before the kings that we're familiar with hearing about in the Hebrew Scriptures. And during this time, there were judges and priests, and there was a famine that we heard about in that first reading of Ruth. And Elimelech and Naomi and their two sons moved to Moab. Well, Moab is on the eastern side of the Dead Sea, so it's in what is present-day Jordan. And it would have been quite a journey for them to get there and to move. Big difference, big transition for them. Moab was this teeny tiny little region on the other side of the Dead Sea, and it was rocky and hilly. And this Sunday, what we're going to do is spend time thinking about their lives and this story. It's Naomi that we're thinking about and what happens to her. Young Naomi moved with her husband and her kids. They saw all this change, and they did this because they were climate refugees. So they moved to Moab, and they lived there, and maybe things were going pretty good. At least they had food. But then her husband and her sons died. Tragedy struck. Ruth chapter 1, verse 5 summarizes it. The woman was left without her husband and her two sons. The Bible highlights Naomi's disaster by calling her woman. Her gender made these losses absolutely catastrophic. Without a male to protect her and provide for her, she was completely vulnerable to every kind of exploitation and privation, and she was living in a country to which she did not belong. She wasn't from Moab. Her daughter-in-laws were. She isn't surrounded by family who can step up to help. Her daughter-in-laws were. They could go home. They could start over. But Naomi was desolate. She had lost everything. She had lost essentially her home. You know what I mean by home, right? It's not the building, it's the place where we belong. It's that place where people know about us and our quirks, and we share the stories and stability and our nourishment. All of those deep things are what we mean when we say home. But that kind of home is a moving target for many of us, and it was absolutely lost to Naomi. We may have a place to eat and sleep and take a bath, but the richness of home, the I'll be home for Christmas kind of home, is a mythology for some of us. It's a grief-ridden nostalgia for some of us. And in that sense, Naomi was homeless. And at points of our lives, we are too. But Naomi was about to get a miracle. We may even call it a Christmas miracle. She had two daughter-in-laws, and hear me now, she had a daughter-in-law who wanted to be with her, who wanted to go all the way to Bethlehem, right? You know, I heard a joke this week that, this joke's been around. I'm going to tell it to you, and you're going to tell me the answer. What's the difference between an in-law and an outlaw? An outlaw is wanted, right? Now, I know I'm being funny, but I'm also serious. Ruth's faithfulness could not have been predicted. It was surprising and unexpected, and when surprising and unexpected meet in a positive way, it is joyful. Ruth was from Moab. Her family was just down the road. She could have remarried, lived among her people, done the holidays in all the usual way, but she didn't. She refused to go to her home. She refused to abandon Naomi. Essentially, she married Naomi. She became Naomi's husband and son, and Naomi became hers. But unfortunately, that math doesn't work. Woman plus woman doesn't equal man. They didn't gain status by being together, not in that time, not in ours. Their love only carried them through the rocky, hilly wilderness on a 10-day journey from Moab back to Bethlehem. Didn't make them not vulnerable, didn't make them not susceptible to any risk. So here's the thing. I want to look at this story and marvel for a minute with you about Ruth's surprising behavior. Humans are the most unpredictable animal on the planet. If you watch wildebeest behavior, they are all going to follow the herd. Hundreds of miles they will go together. None of them are going to wander off with their mother-in-law. They just don't do it. A lot of this unpredictability is credited to the fact that humans live in every single environment on Earth. And therefore, we've had to be unpredictable because we have to be adaptable, right, to every new situation. We are spontaneous. We up and pack our bags and move to Moab where the food is better, or we move back to Bethlehem because the food is returned. But as adaptable and surprising as we can be, there are fundamental needs that we humans all want to meet. We need relationships of commitment and love and support. Those relationships that help us bear and rear children. They help us work together so that everybody has food and a coat and shelter. That's how we survive and even flourish, regardless of where we are. Biologists theorize that gay and lesbian traits, sexual orientations that we name as gay and lesbian, are often shunned and frowned on in most cultures. And yet, genetically, we still have that predisposition as humans. Why? Well, one of the evolutionary biologist theories, and I think this totally makes sense, is that same-gender love diminishes competition in the clan and increases collaboration. In the same way, menopause and elderly life contributes to the community because child-rearing is over and we can take care of each other and teach Sunday school and bring cookies and share the wisdom of experience, right? We all need each other to help mend the brokenness that our lives inherently get. That's the kind of mutual support John the Baptist is calling people back to. It's exactly that. It's the gospel hope that somehow we can make a kingdom in this world of connection, and that through that we can manifest God's intention for us. So all of us are on this journey longing for that kind of home. And Ruth and Naomi, they made that journey together back to Bethlehem. Now, Ruth wasn't Jewish. We've got that down. She didn't belong. Moab actually was an enemy nation, but she made the decision to come to Bethlehem and be a part of one of the greatest stories ever told. So these women get to Bethlehem, and here's one more little aside. Bethlehem, let's think about the name of this town, right? You and I, oh, little town of Bethlehem, we know that this is a very important town. But did you know that it is a compound word in the Semitic languages, Beit and Lahem? And Beit is home, and Lahem is bread. Now, it's much more complicated than that because Hebrew has lots more, every word has a different meaning. But the essence is house of bread. This is where Ruth and Naomi lived, and this is where they eventually experienced joy. If you're familiar with the story, you know that Ruth finds her next husband while she's gleaning barley to make bread. And her son Obed, from that second marriage, he is the father of David, and David is King David, who is the predecessor of Messiah. So here we are with that root, 1,100 years before the Common Era, this is our story, but we know Common Era is also Year of our Lord, right? A very common thing happened in year 1 of our Lord. Jesus was born in Bethlehem. Baby Jesus was born in the house of bread. He came into this world just like the rest of us, vulnerable and completely dependent. Being God and all, he could have come a different way, right? He could have taken a dust mote. God could have taken a dust mote and bing, there was adult Jesus, fully formed. It's totally possible. God made a decision for God to be present in the most vulnerable human alive, a baby. And that means that where we belong, all of us is in that same web of interconnection and dependence, modeled best in families, in community groups of love and support. But just like Naomi, we who are far off are brought close. Let's make room for each other. Let's celebrate when the insider comes out and when the outsider is here. Let's celebrate that Jesus did the totally unexpected and left eternity through time and space and said to us, "Where you go, I will go. Your people shall be my people." Jesus became vulnerable and dependent. Emmanuel, God with us. Jesus became our hope. Jesus did not gain status by doing this, we all know. Jesus became vulnerable. He came to us and made his home with us so that we could be vulnerable together, so that his love would carry us through the rocky places and the wilderness and bring us home. 2 Corinthians 5:21 reminds us, God made Jesus to be sin, even though he had no sin. God made him who had no sin to be sin for us, so that in him we might become the righteousness of God. In other words, Jesus left his place in eternity and became part of this broken and evil world so that we might become a part of God's life. John 1, that we'll hear at Christmas Day, it says, "And the Word became flesh." The Word became flesh and made noise like a baby and dwelled among us, and we have seen his glory. We have seen it. In all our poverty, we have seen it. Jesus left his place in eternity, and he showed us the very face of God through his love. And because of that, we can be home. In the joy of God's love, we are home. May we lay hold of it. And may we do everything in our power to cultivate it, in spite of the obstacles, in spite of the times when it can feel so hard. May we open ourselves to be vulnerable and be strong in God's love, so that others can come in. Because for unto us a son is born, a child is given, and through his faithfulness to us, we are home.